Okay, so today I'm going to show everyone how to drive rigs that you've already made in a program like Maya using Motionbuilder. Basically what this means is that you can have a character that's already rigged up, and then you can take an animation that's already been made and use that animation to drive that character's animation, and then save that animation so you can have a library of other animations without having to do it by hand and use other people's stuff. Basically. In a more professional sense, this might be in a pipeline, but for a hobbyist or something, maybe you just want to use someone else's animation that they put online for your character that's rigged. So let's hop right into this. This is a file I downloaded off of TurboSquid. Pretty simple. It's got a couple issues that we're going to go over why this isn't going to work perfectly, but overall, this is going to work. The problems that we're going to have is this jaw isn't parented with the rest of the bones, so we're actually just going to delete it because it's going to make problems, and these eyes aren't parented with the rest of this rig here, so we're going to delete those, and then I think the mouth isn't parented either, so we're going to get rid of that. That might not make a lot of sense, but it would have created bugs because we need everything to be attached to the bones in the main skeleton here, and those weren't. So we're just going to get rid of them. We could have parented them ourselves to everything. I'm not going to do that for the sake of this tutorial, but yeah, this will be just enough to get you up and running, really. So let's hide the character here, and we've got a pretty simple looking rig. Now we want to get this ready to be driven through another animation, so we want to go into workspaces, go into animation, and then we're going to make a control rig out of this rig. So click create control rig. A valid skeleton is required. We are not going to create a skeleton because we've already got one. We're just going to define our control rig with an already existing skeleton. Now let us start to use the skeleton to define. Left hand, great, and it selects the opposite piece of bone, if you want to say that, while you're selecting these to speed up the process a little bit. I'm going to just go through this very quickly. So I'm double clicking on these joints, and then I'm clicking on the joint to select each piece here. And left foot. Cool. I think this is done right. And then pelvis, or was this the hips here? Now the hips should be everything. When you select the hips should basically pick all the bones, pretty much, at least in my experience, or you're going to have some issues. And then the spine will be this, and then the head will be that. Cool. So this is all you need to do, bare minimum, to have something controlled by something else. You don't need to do this reference. You don't need to, if you double click on these, you can actually, not double click, click on these little drop downs here to add a little bit more detail depending on the rig you're using to control these. But just sticking with bare minimum just to show you guys how to use it. Now, there's a little exclamation point here saying that there's a problem. I'm going to try and just go over this really quickly. This means that the rig is not in a T-pose. Now, T-pose is like this. Now, why does this want our rig to be in the T-pose? Well, typically, when you're using mocap data to drive any type of animation, it starts off in that T-pose. And it wants this rig to be in the T-pose because the first step when you're using something to drive another animation is having them be in the same pose. And once they're in that same pose, it knows what to do with it because it has that one frame of reference. Now, we aren't going to actually be putting this in the T-pose here because the animation that we're working off of isn't in the T-pose. It's more of like in this pose right here. Now, Maya doesn't know that, and Motionbuilder doesn't know that, but in general, that's normally how mocap data is. That first frame is the T-pose, and then it hops into whatever the animation you're doing. This one isn't, so we're just really, what this is trying to tell us is, I don't think that the first frame of your animation is syncing up with the first frame of the pose your control rig is in. Little does it know, it actually is. So, I'm just going to call this guy Max. I think that was his name. Or was it William? Oops. Okay, well, we're calling him Max for now. And now we're going to send him over to Motionbuilder. But something to keep in mind, you send something over to Motionbuilder, you want the geometry to be, you want to be able to see the geometry because you're sending it all over. And in my experience, at least, I don't know if you always have to do this, but sometimes when I've sent over rigs to Motionbuilder without the geometry shown, when I brought them back, they've caused some issues. I don't know if that would happen with this one, but let's just be safe. So now we've got it selected. Let us send as a new scene over to Motionbuilder. Let's see here. Now the bones are a little big, but they are actually working. Now, what do we need to do here? So let's import our file. Now this is shove spin with reaction. Let's check that out. Cool. So this is what this looks like. Here, he's walking, he spins around, very cool. Now I got this off of Maximo. It's one of these files here. I'm not sure what one it is, but it is one of them. All I did was download the FBX file. I didn't do anything else here. And typically when you're downloading mocap data or anything, it's the same deal. It's just a very simple rig that's like this. That's got, you know, this very simple bone structure. So you should be able to do this with basically any FBX rig that is made to drive other files. Now, there's one step we got to do here, and we got to set this as a character. Once we set this file as a character, now just to be clear, what I'm doing here is I'm dragging this onto the rig itself, not the file I have behind there. So just to be a little bit more clear for anyone watching, we want to characterize this. And there we go. So now we have to set Max here as a control rig. By FKIK. And now that we set him as a control rig, we can set the character that we just made to control this control rig. Now let's check it out. Looking good. I think this worked. Great. So now we have an animation. We didn't really do too much work to do it, but we have one. Now we just want to select the stuff we want to bring back. So basically the mesh and the skeleton. And then I think we just need to hit update here. And there we go. I don't know what that is. What are we dealing with here? A tongue? Great. Something else that wasn't parented. Get rid of that. See ya. And now we have a very rough, but a workable way of using files, FBX files, or really any type of animation file to drive a rig that we've already got set up. Now we can save this in Trex or whatever Maya calls it and reuse it, or go into the keyframes here and manipulate it. But this isn't going to be too easy to manipulate. But we have the ability now to work with this animation Maya. So I know that was pretty quick and dirty, but that was just a really simple way of using existing animations to drive things that you already have created in mind. So that's it. See you later. Hope this was semi-helpful.